There have been a few times in my life where I have heard a band and thought to myself, this band is likely going to be very popular in the near future. I remember saying it about Blink-182 when they released Dude Ranch, and that definitely came to fruition when they put out their next album, Enema of the State. But I haven't really been able to state confidently that a new rock band will somehow find a way to make it mainstream since probably the year 2000. There are many factors for why that is, but now it seems I'm more inclined to say something to the effect of, I would love to see this band make it big someday. For this episode, I'm bringing on a band that I'm both hopeful for, and I'm also fairly certain they're going to be doing something big in the next few years. And this is by no means the last time you're going to hear from them. Today, I get to speak to the very talented pop-punk band New Aesthetic from San Diego, California, about their music and what the future holds for these guys who are all still under the legal drinking age, but you wouldn't know it from how they sound. Their infectious spirit, comedic tendencies, banging music, and interactive live shows will make a fan out of anyone who takes the time to check them out. Stay tuned to hear from the band about what they foresee for themselves and why I'm calling them the best pop-punk band you haven't heard of yet. Excited for the countdown. Here is Gabe and Matthew from New Aesthetic from Southern California, from San Diego roughly and around that area basically. But hey guys, welcome to the show.
What's up?
I did want to make sure that everybody who is watching this episode knows that when I say like you guys are the next big thing in pop punk, I'm not just shitting around here. Like you guys not only sound that way, are carrying yourselves that way, but you also truly believe this. And I kind of just want to immediately address the elephant in the room because you guys are young. You guys are still all under 21. There's going to be a lot of people who immediately just jump to they must be Nepo babies. They must know somebody, their industry plants, all that stuff, right? So kind of give me like a quick rundown. I know the story of how you guys formed and everything, but give me a quick rundown, how you guys got to this point and kind of let people know who might call you Nepo babies or industry plants. Let them know what's really going on.
I've just got to say, we worked our asses off for this, man. I've been dreaming about playing in a band since I was 8 years old, and David's been dreaming about it since he was like 4 or whenever he started playing. And Dylan was the same way, our other guitarist, who's unfortunately not here. And Matt as well has been wanting this for a long time. So we've all just been like grinding, man. I don't think I want to be called an industry plant. That's not the goal here. You can tell them to
suck a dick. It's okay. This is the internet.
Yeah. That.
We've definitely worked for it, and a big social media presence. You know, our boy Dylan has been helping us a lot on social media. He knows how to crack the code for it. He knows what to post, when to post, and it's just been hard work, dedication, and it's happening organically, which is really dope.
And I think it was, so Matthew and Dylan, you guys met at the School of Rock.
Yeah.
You guys were really young, right? So
that was a long time ago.
Yeah, and then you guys kind of reconnected again, and then you guys met Gabe at a Knuckle Puck concert or something like that. And
correct.
Dylan got up on stage and played some guitar.
Oh, yeah.
For Knuckle Puck, and you guys were like, what is this kid doing? And then you guys, obviously, Gabe, you were playing with Matt and like kind of jamming with him at the time, the bassist, and you guys all kind of came together and formed this. And you guys were playing without a bassist for about a year, right? So like, this wasn't something like you guys all knew each other from high school as an early age. You kind of are still putting pieces together, and you finally kind of got this lineup about it. I think it was about a year ago even now.
Yeah,
like
I think.
Less than that.
Yeah, I think it was maybe just under a year. I think last November was the first show we played with our bassist Matt. But before that, we were just doing 2 guitars and me, which was pretty funny. We had no bass in our mix, which was interesting for sure. But we should grab it out Matt now. He's awesome.
We thought we had something cool because I'd always have like a lower tone than Dylan, and Dylan would have like a higher trebly tone. So we're like, we don't need a bass player. But then it wasn't until we played a show that somebody was like, you guys should really consider getting a bass player. And we tried a couple of people out. But when we got Matt and we played that show, we were like, okay, like we know this is where it's at. This is the boys.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting to have a rhythm section without really rhythm, right? Like you got your timekeeper in Matthew on drums, but you still don't have like the low end kind of filling out that sound.
It was just me, man. I was solo. I was running it. There was we played a show up in Bakersfield a long time ago. It's our good friends in a band called Inbalance. That was one of our first shows ever. And the sound guy, I vividly remember, came up to us after our set and was like, "Yo, dude, it's like great set. You guys need a bassist." And I was like, "Fuck, we kind of need a bassist, guys."
He's like, oh,
Yeah.
this is like that wise old desert gym guy who just like sits out there and smokes weed all day. But he's like, hey, it'd be really good for you guys if you guys had a bass player.
A bassist, exactly.
So let's talk about obviously the kind of weird logic of just being in a pop punk and rock band in general these days, right? So like pop punk has never really kind of fallen completely out of fashion since the mid 90s when it really blew up.
For
But
sure.
it definitely kind of went a little silent or a little bit more underground lately and over the past 15 years or so. So I'm curious, how did you guys all kind of get into pop punk? And, obviously being so young, most of you guys weren't even alive in the 90s. So like,
Oh, yeah.
actually none of you guys were alive
None of us. Yep.
in the 90s. So what were you guys thinking? Like, why did this genre kind of appeal to you?
I guess I would say, I got into pop punk through a family friend a long time ago at a young age. And before anything really grew, I knew Green Day, and that was really just about it. But around 8th grade, I saw a YouTube video of a band doing a Blink-182 medley set, like where they just combined all their songs. And that's kind of where it started. And then after that, it was mainly Blink that got me into pop punk. And then I just went through into a huge rabbit hole. Like I would listen to a bunch of NoFX, Descendants, because of that's what inspired them. And then from that, it started getting into the earlier years. Like I figured out who Knuckle Puck was, Real Friends, Story So Far. And then it just kept growing and growing. And then I'd say recently, after meeting Dylan and Matthew, we kind of together formed a bond and like a love for hardcore. So it's really cool.
It's the new thing, right? Like a lot of new bands that are coming up are in the hardcore, like
Oh, yeah.
Turnstile,
Yeah,
Military
it's
Gun.
kind
Like
of
some of these
like-
bands are really, really good too.
Yeah, and that's kind of what's like taken over right now.
Yeah.
That's what's hot. So that's where we kind of, I feel like, mix and enjoy being in is a hardcore scene because, like, you're right. The pop punk scene is a little weird. It's a little, I wouldn't say it's not dead, but
It's quiet, for sure.
it's quiet for sure. But you have other bands coming out that are considered pop punk, but if you ask them, I feel like a lot of them would say they're into the hardcore.
Yeah, borderline emo hardcore, right? Like a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of that.
For
It's
sure.
kind of what it's like. You got bands like Knock Loose out there that are just kicking the shit out of everybody, and like, Turnstile. It's like when you go to a Turnstile show, it's like everybody's doing Jazzercise or something out there. And I know you guys are way too young to know what Jazzercise is, but I think you get the reference.
My intro to pop punk was, I think, a little bit different from Gabe's. My drum teacher, when I was pretty young, introduced me to a band called State Champs. And specifically right around the time that their album Around the World and Back came out. And I remember like bumping that album so much. And that was kind of the only pop punk that I got exposure to when I was really young. And then I met Dylan. So I just gotta give a huge shout out to Dylan. He introduced me to like everything I know. He showed me the ropes of pop punk and like showed me all these other bands and the old emo stuff and all the new shit and like everything in between. And he got me just like super hooked. And I remember from that point forward, like he would come to my house and we would jam like bands' full discographies, every single song. We'd literally note for note. We'd just geek out. And we met Gabe, and he was kind of doing the same thing with all of our favorite bands. And it was like, holy shit, this is awesome! Like we can play both guitar parts to these covers now. And then, yeah, I fell into hardcore at about the same time as Gabe and Dylan, and I would say, are equally as influenced now by hardcore as we are pop punk, which it's really cool, and it's opened up a lot of new like opportunities for us in both scenes.
When I got into it, every time it came to doing something note for note, I was like, I don't have the patience for this. I will play it as good as I can do it without worrying about playing every lead guitar part or anything like that. I'm like, I'll mix parts together so that way I just take the easy route. I'm like, as long as I can sing and play this, then I'm fine. Yeah, you guys doing it note for note, it kind of gives me kind of the answer to a question that I was going to ask because, you guys have put out a handful of singles. You put out, the EP, I guess, Run for Cover. and they sound incredible, right? So like I was
Thank
curious
you.
as to how you guys sounded so polished and accomplished so early. You got in you guys' like age and career, obviously, but I think you kind of just answered that. You guys sat down and studied a lot of music note for note, and I think that kind of puts into perspective a lot of what you can actually do when you pay attention to the details, right? So I think when I look at your music, I'm like, there's no way that this is like a band's first single or first big video or whatever. I'm like, this is like, I mean, you listen to Cheshire Cat or Buddha by Blink-182, you're like, they don't sound that fucking good. I know it was a different time; they didn't have digital
Definitely a
studio
different
recording
time.
and stuff. But yeah,
I love
but
those albums, but yeah, I mean they are complete dog shit, to be
yeah,
honest. I still love them. Please,
yeah.
nobody on the internet hate me. They're fantastic albums, and I love
I was the
listening
one
to
that
them.
started putting the hate on it, but yes,
But the recordings
they
are
make very
absolute
good
dog shit.
songs, but the recording parts of them are bad, like not good, right?
For sure. I think everyone can agree on that. Even Gabe was like the biggest Blake fanboy in the entire world. Yeah, I mean, we just really put in the hours like studying music and studying our favorite bands. Like I remember Dylan will always talk about like when he played with Hawthorne Heights, he would do the same moves up on stage with them as they would do in the music videos. Like that's just kind of a testament to the fact that we spent way too much time watching these bands play like full sets or whatever and memorizing their dance moves or their jokes or like what they'd say in between songs. And I don't know, I think that helped us like come out more refined when we started making music.
100%. I'd say that I became a better musician jamming with Matthew and Dylan for sure. Because I was like you, like I would just play the easiest parts. And till this day, I don't even play them right, probably. Like, jamming with them is just like they've definitely made me a better musician. And like you said a little bit ago about like the first EP, it's pretty crazy because you hear all these stories about bands saying like this is the band when it happens. And before, when I was playing in another band before this one, I would think that this was the band. Like I would say, oh, this is the band, this is gonna make it, blah blah blah. But then you started jamming with Matthew, Dylan, and then Matt when he came in the picture a little bit later after boot camp, and it's just like this is where it's at. This feels like four best friends playing music. This feels like the band everybody's talking about versus just kind of like four guys trying to make something happen.
Yeah, and I think that it really helps when everybody's on the same page, right? Because if you're dragging somebody along, there's just no real way to take somebody with you, right? Like you have to have everybody
Absolutely.
pushing the thing forward, right?
Go
It's like
ahead,
when your
Dave.
van breaks down and you need some people to push.
Oh my
One
God.
guy's,
Start
one guy's
shooting?
taking a day off. You're like, get the fuck back there, push the van.
Dude, that was a
Right.
nightmare.
Right.
Jeez.
But yeah, I'd say 100% when everybody's on the same page and everybody's thinking the same thing, feeling the same way, you will go a lot further.
I think another thing that's pretty cool about you guys' band is, I don't know exactly the heritage of everybody in the band, but I know at least a couple of you guys are Hispanic, Latino. My wife's family is all Mexican. I fucking love Hispanic culture, love Mexico. I love Mexican food. I love pretty much everything about it. But I was just curious because it's been a while. I mean, like Phoenix TX, obviously was a big inspiration to me. Like I'm not Hispanic, but when I looked at like pop punk bands, I was like, God damn, like Will from Phoenix TX particularly, I was like, this dude is legit. I actually met him. He tried to pass me a joint. I was like 17 at the time. I'm like, no, I'm okay. Like, bands like that and bands like your guys' where you don't see a lot of, especially Mexican American or Hispanic Latino people in pop punk, or in hardcore scene it's kind of a little bit kind of coming up now, but in pop punk it's a little different. Do you guys think that kind of helps you stand out as well, or is there some support structure within your guys' family? I know obviously Gabe, your dad is Ricky is the manager of your guys' group, but like, do you think this kind of the heritage and the culture also helps you kind of build this band a little bit faster?
I have no clue. I have no clue how to
I
answer
would
that.
say, okay, I'll answer for you, Gabe. I got this. I personally am not Mexican. I'm Filipino and German. I take a lot of pride in that
thought
culture.
Filipino too, but I wasn't sure. I didn't want to guess because
Yeah, Matt and I are Filipino. We take a lot of pride in that. I think all of us take a lot of pride in our ethnicity and our background. And I don't know. I think it makes us stand out a little bit, but more than anything else, I think it allows us to kind of just connect with people on another level. Like we're not just a generic. Sorry, if this is like not
I
correct
am a
anyway, but
generic
we're
white
not
person. You probably
another
know somebody
generic
that
pop
looks
punk
very
band.
similar to me.
Yeah. So maybe it helps us stand out a little, but more than anything, we just take a lot of pride in it, and I think it's super cool for us to be able to represent our cultures in front of like these audiences, and that's super. That's awesome to me. I love it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what he
And
said, bar
yeah,
for
I love
bar.
Filipino culture too. Like I've been to the Philippines a few times, and there's a band called the Dollheads here. They're a sibling group, pop punk band. They're all Filipino.
Oh, that's awesome.
They're fucking awesome too. So
Hell yeah.
you don't see that a lot in rock music, and when it is, it's usually like a hardcore or like
For
a
sure.
mix, a fusion band of like rap rock or something like that. And it's like pop punk. You know, I know there's a ton of pop punk and punk fans in general that are Mexican, Latino, Hispanic, Filipino, all that stuff, and I'm like, where are all the bands though? Like that's what I want to see, and it's great to see you guys coming up from that. That's why I just wanted to ask to see if there was any like,
For sure.
obviously having the heritage and the pride in it's great, but I think that I know I heard you guys talk about this, that you guys have kind of like a big family group support as well, which is kind of a cool thing. And I think, Philippine and Mexican culture, Spanish conquistadors, obviously at one point kind of colonized both of those areas. And I
Yeah.
think there is a shared heritage there that where you guys can kind of mix in between and kind of get a lot of in common things anyway.
Yeah, our band only exists because of family, man. I mean, Ricky is the prime example, but also my parents are super supportive, and they have done so much for the band. I mean, the biggest thing is probably just letting us practice at my house every time. It's so much fucking noise, so huge thanks to my
I was going to be
parents.
at the drummer's house because they're already used to it, right?
Exactly, yeah. And Dylan's parents are super supportive. Even Matt's are super supportive. It's awesome. Like we just have this whole team behind us helping push us through and like get us places that we couldn't get ourselves. And I mean, we owe almost everything to our families.
It's a lot easier when you have a bigger support team behind you, pushing you, because not like you've heard stories of people saying, "Oh, my parents don't support me in this and that," and it's hard, you know. But when you have somebody that supports you in music, especially music, because it's a hard thing in the world to do, it's really awesome to have that support. Yes,
So
sir.
I know you guys have kind of built up a pretty good reputation, especially online presence so far. Obviously the video for Spork has over 100,000 views on YouTube. Great video, obviously the Weekend at Bernie's kind of theme. I'm sorry you guys didn't get to buy your 2 boats, Gabe. I know that you were really looking forward to that, but I know you
Yeah.
guys have also you're playing. You did the Southwest tour. It was 10 shows over 12 days. You're playing the new Shed on August the 30th.
Oh yeah.
You're playing the California for Lovers Festival the next day, and you're actually playing a club show for When We Were Young Fest, headlined by Hawthorne Heights and Armor for Sleep in October. So
Yes,
what were
sir.
your expectations for this band when you guys were started, and what are your expectations now that you're going in this direction?
It's crazy. It's awesome. It's so crazy because last year when we attended Is for Lovers, Dylan got to play on stage with them. And he told me, I remember, he was like, we're going to play next year. And he was so confident about that. And me, I was just like, okay, like we'll see when it happens. And then they asked
Yeah.
us, and it was like, what? And it's crazy.
He's like the
They
dream
asked-
maker. He's like, I will take you guys on this ride. You're coming with me.
Yep.
And then they asked us to do the When We Were Young thing, and I was even crazier. We're just like, I can't
Yeah.
believe this is happening. And again, like, we just want to say thank you to Hawthorne Heights. If they're watching or not, like, you guys have been almost like big brothers to us and helping us on this journey. So it's been really cool. Yeah,
And just for the record, this is at the LA Coliseum, right? Like this is like the
Oh,
big
yeah.
ass 100,000
Yeah,
or I don't know if
it's
it's
at the
100, but
torch.
90,000 seater or whatever.
It's
It's the outside part. It's
Yeah.
called the Torch. It's still like a 10,000 cap. So I
Okay, I
mean,
was gonna
just a
say,
humble
like-
little humble venue, very
Yeah, I
small.
was gonna say I don't think you're gonna fill it, but maybe if it's just like a section of it, but that makes sense that it's at the torch part. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
10,000 people. I mean, that's insane. If you would have
Still
told us a
awesome.
year ago, even that we were gonna play Soma side stage, which is a 500 cap, we would have been like, "What the fuck? You're lying."
Yeah.
So the fact that we're doing this now and you headline Soma is just, I mean, we're living our dreams.
Obviously, in this, direction, now you're building momentum. You have record labels calling, obviously emailing you guys, letting you know that they're interested. I know you guys have talked to some record labels. I watched the Emo Brown podcast where they talked about Wiretap Records. When I first met you, I talked about Wiretap Records. If you'd have talked to them, I know Rob and I are not best friends, but Rob and I get along quite well, and we definitely talk on occasion. I really want to go to his Attention Fest in September, but I don't know if I can make it or not. But when you guys are getting talks from record labels, is there anything that, because they're not required these days, and I know that you guys aren't necessarily rushing to sign, right? But is there anything you're looking for when working with a label that is like a key to you signing with them?
I think we're just looking for people who are really like-minded to us. I know we've spoken to a couple different groups at this point. I don't want to disclose any names or anything, but certain people have connected more with us than others, and we really like to feel like we're working with our family still. Recently, we've talked to, this is one that apparently I can talk about now. We've talked to a guy named Jason at Sound Talent Group, which is a fantastic booking agency. And I remember we got on the phone with him and instantly it just felt like it was family. Like, he's so invested in the scene and the culture of pop punk. And to talk to someone who's just as driven as us, and like wants us to succeed as much as we do, it feels great. And it feels like family and it feels easy. And that's why we wanted to go. So I guess that's what we look for, is just to expand our team of family. Like, we don't want these suits who are coming in here just to like steal our money or whatever. We want people who are actually down for the ride.
Now, I know obviously another thing that you guys are doing is you're kind of, putting out music as you go and everything like that. But are you guys planning on putting out an album? Like, obviously in the talks of working with a record label, is this like to hopefully put out an album, or is this like something that is just, if it comes, it comes? We're just going to keep releasing songs. We're going to keep writing more music and just playing shows. What's kind of your guys' goal right now?
As of right now, we have like a couple singles that we're going to be dropping within the next probably 6 months, I'd say. And then after that, or even right now, actually, we're taking as much time as we can to write a lot of songs, which is a lot of work, but it should be worth it for the end product. We plan to release an LP, hopefully, like middle towards the end of next year, start rollout for it. If we're lucky, if everything's on time and we're all writing enough or recording in a timely fashion or whatever. But yeah, our plan is to release an LP eventually. So
yeah,
we're working. We're trying our best.
All these record labels are saying they need more music. So right now we have one song ready to go, but there's still a couple of songs in the works that aren't finished, that aren't mixed, mastered, etc. But the end goal is to definitely do a record, but like Matthew said, by next year.
And that's a pretty ambitious goal, because obviously within the recording, the writing, then you have obviously the release plan, and you have to time it up. If there is a record label that's going to put it out, then they got to put it in their release schedule and all that stuff. So it's ambitious for sure. I know we're talking about something that's a year away or more potentially, but if it doesn't happen until 2026, it's probably not too far fetched, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. Records aren't a super fast thing. We know that. Distribution can take a long time. Recording can take a long time. Planning can take a long time. And like, we're playing a lot of shows right now. And with this new booking agency, I'm assuming that we're going to be playing a lot more shows.
Yeah.
So I guess stay tuned. Like, we're just going to need to find as much time as we can to write. And if that's not all in one sitting, then so be it. But we're going to try our absolute hardest, and we want to get new music out really bad. So we're gonna keep doing our thing, and we're gonna do it as good as we can, as fast as we can.
No, I was gonna say it's crazy, because if you look at these like bands, say you're normally supposed to do a record every 2 years, and on top of that, you tour the previous record. So it's just crazy how like it's done. Record, right?
Big circle, man.
Yeah. What I will say is, do not try to stick to that standard, because usually what happens is the albums become terrible, right? Like, worse and worse and worse. Like, take your time to write the music. You can, there's bands like OK Go, where they did a couple albums. Like, I think they had like 4 albums, and this isn't you guys, obviously. They had 4 albums over like 10 years. And then they're talking about now releasing an album after 10 years. So shout
out to 40 So Far for doing that shit.
Yeah.
They put out Proper Notes in 2018, and 6 years later, they finally put out another LP. And it is so much better than the last.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, when you're on a major record label and you're pushed to put out music, that's what can happen. Like, you're just a lot of them are just trying to get out of the contract, right? Like, let's fulfill the contract.
Oh, yeah.
Let's get the fuck out of here. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy, because I feel like before, when we first started, we kind of just we wrote music, we recorded it, and then we put out the EP, not really knowing what we were doing. And even still, Screaming Out was a learning curve, but it wasn't until Spork that I'd say Dylan, I'll give props to Dylan for sure, is Dylan was like, we got to make this the biggest release yet. And at first, I didn't really know what that meant. And then he kind of explained it, is reaching out to playlists, reaching out to people that have put out the video, et cetera, et cetera. And it was a pretty big release, I'd say, you know, and it was all organic. And it's like now we're planning another single release within the next, I'd say, 2 months or a month. And it's like the goal for that one is to be bigger than the last one.
We also have been taking a lot of pride in the fact that our YouTube video, that growth was completely organic. We didn't do jack for that. We just kind of let it in. We got really lucky that it was released in the same week as, like, I think a new Movement song and the Story So Far album. So, like, we just got pushed out with the videos for those, and I don't know, it all clicked. We got really lucky, but I mean, I know Dylan for a fact worked really, really hard on the release of that song and spent countless hours late at night, like emailing publications and reaching out to playlist curators just to, like, maybe get our foot in the door a little bit and get that song in some places.
It's smart. I mean, that's the way to do it. Everybody thinks you have to know somebody. It's like, well, you can also find those people, right? Like, they're not ghosts out there.
Yeah, exactly.
And I gotta say, shout out Mo. She's our friend from Arizona. She helped us get on the noise. So shout out Mo once again.
Shout out Mo.
Obviously, let's talk about kind of the San Diego area. Obviously, it's kind of like always been like a breeding ground for punk bands over the years. None more successful than Blink-182, but their success is kind of what every musician is dreaming of, right? Like, I know you guys have physically stated that's what your goal is, to be at that level of Blink-182 at some point. Obviously, that is like kind of like winning the lottery, especially in the music industry these days. But how do you guys feel like you stand out in order to reach a mass appeal? Like, how do you guys feel like you're going to be able to do that versus other bands?
I would just say just being the best we can be, staying true to ourselves, and always putting out the best stuff that we could do.
I think that I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, or I guess our own horn, but we put on a really good live show, and we can win over just about any crowd. Recently, especially, we've been playing with a lot of indie bands, and those fans have never heard music like what we're releasing or what we like. And even so, like, we're playing these shows, and kids are crowd surfing or stage diving for the first time, or like seeing a mosh pit, or learning how to two-step, and I think that's awesome. And we're like winning over these crowds, and it feels really good, and I think that will take us really far. As long as we continue to just like be ourselves on stage. And I think people can see that authenticity and not only notice it, but appreciate it. So I think that's kind of part of why we might stand out. Also, just because we're young and we're hungry and we really just want to do this.
But yeah, I think that's key. And I think, you know, there's kind of maybe like a little slogan or motto in there, something like, you know, winning over crowds in 30 minutes or less. You're like Domino's Pizza, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Else, I mean, we won't give you a refund, but
yeah. It's not a guarantee. You can kick rocks if you want your money back. But if you don't like us, then just go give us a bad Instagram comment or something.
A bad Yelp review.
I'd say to add to that, not only the live, and whatever else Matthew said, but I'd say we work really well together to produce like songs.
I will say that, you know, there are a ton of SoCal and San Diego bands that have various levels of success as well. So like, you know, you've already mentioned like Story So Far and all these other bands that kind of, I'm pretty sure they're from California. I actually don't know for sure, but I think they are.
Yeah, they are.
You know, a lot of these bands, you know, especially like drive-through record bands and stuff, and all these bands that kind of have various levels of success. I'm just wondering if they're like, you guys kind of see like a stepping stone or a ladder of ascension and say like, oh, right now we want to be like this band was at this time, and then this band was at this time, or this is the kind of height that we want to reach. Do you guys see that kind of like, you know, if you're looking at like maybe like a fighter trying to get up the rankings in boxing or something, do you kind of have like that kind of goal in front of you at all times, or do you see other bands like that for you?
I think for us, it's less about the bands and just about like the size of shows that we're playing. Like, gotcha. I remember when we started, I was dreaming of playing like small clubs like Side Stage or like Valley Bar out in Phoenix. And now that we've played these venues and kind of have like honed in on how we play them and can do it pretty well, it's like, okay, now I want to play big clubs, or I want to go play theaters or ballrooms. And then from there, it's like, okay, now I want to play stadiums, or I guess festivals, and then stadiums and arenas, but
And
I
like,
mean,
you
just
know,
trying
a
to climb those
gigantic
ranks.
outdoor festival that's like 1 million people or something, right?
Yeah.
And then there's nothing else but to go straight down and get a drug addiction or whatever after that.
Yeah, and then we all die, and the band's over.
Add to that, yeah, I would say that sometimes when you look at saying like, okay, I want to try to be at this level at this time, like you were saying, it's almost, if it doesn't happen, you almost feel like, I don't know how to explain it, but you feel like you didn't do enough, or you feel like you couldn't get there.
Yeah.
I gotta say, it's like we've been playing shows for a little over a year now. I'd say May. When was our first show? Like May?
Yeah,
Or
I think it was
yeah, May of last year, I think, was our first show. And within 2 years, or even a year, we played some pretty crazy shows. We played
Yeah.
Side Stage. We did a little run to Arizona. We played Chain Reaction with our friends in Young Culture and Just Friends. And now, within 2 years, we get to say that we played Is for Lovers and the When We Were Young Fest, which is really crazy to say. So, I mean, I think we're doing good. And just, it's crazy to see, okay, where are we going to be at a year from now or 2 years from now? Because you never really know.
Let's talk about the music, because you guys make really fucking good music as well. So I will say, when I heard you guys for the first time, obviously, I listened to you guys before I saw you guys play it at Taverna Twistera here in Las Vegas, but I was blown away by Complacent specifically. It's probably my personal favorite song so far, but it's probably because it feels like someone my age wrote it. Like, how are you guys so good at tapping into deep topics, but still put them into catchy pop songs? And are you guys like secretly like 30 years old or what?
I just trying to say Stick Live.
Time travelers, that's the secret sauce of new aesthetic.
Yeah, I think it's just listening to older music, like, I don't know, for example, like the Ataris or the Starting Line, and just like we really, or Jimmy Eat World, whatever it is, like we really appreciate like old pop punk just as much as we do like all the new Tumblr era stuff or whatever in the 2010s. All of our songs are written pretty, I wouldn't say easily, but it's in a way that's very organic and it feels fun to us. So like, even these really dark lyrics, it's like we're all sitting together in my basement laughing about it. So I guess we just got lucky, man.
I remember I think I was coming to practice and Matthew and Dylan had wrote the riff. And we were just sitting there, we were sitting there forever, just like playing the riff and then playing the songs. And the song has changed a lot for sure. But I mean, we wrote that song in, I'd say, a day, in less than a day.
Yeah, it wasn't that. I sent the voice memo of the riff to the band group chat, like literally the day before we had practice, and they were like, "Oh, that's cool." And then they showed it to my house, and I was like, "Hey, can we write that song?" And we sat down and we wrote the entire song in one sitting. And then we went and recorded it and released it. And I was like, "Damn, that's crazy. We actually just did that. Didn't even feel real." It's just like, again, I feel super lucky to be playing with these guys. They make everything super easy and really fun. It's still one of my favorite parts of our show today is like after the bridge playing that like little breakdown part when the crowd just screams it. It's like, that's so cool to me. And I just love that we wrote that part of the song. Like it's awesome.
You guys seamlessly also switch back and forth between dual singers, Gabe and Dylan, obviously. And you both sound good. You guys even have kind of very similar tones in your voice. So it's not like Mark and Tom, where one's high pitched and the other one's kind of low. It's like you guys have very relatively similar vocal ranges, and it really feels like you're listening to a band like Blink or Starting Line or Alkaline Trio, in the sense that like these bands that have these melodies, harmonies, and gang vocals and all this other stuff, right? Midtown, another one. Well, I think they had like 4 singers in that band. But do you guys feel like it helps you create the best possible music when you're like working together to push each other to like really write these songs really well?
100%. 100%. I'd say sometimes it's like for the dual singer stuff, we'll create these melodies, and it's like we realize they're kind of too high, but then me and Dylan will sit there and practice and push ourselves to become better to sing these melodies. For example, Spork was one of those songs. Um, when we sent it to be a pre-pro or get pre-pro, whatever you would say,
Yeah.
it like the melody changed, and then we were kind of like, damn, like that's pretty high. But me and Dylan both practiced it and decided what we were gonna do for that. So I think it's really cool.
I remember I had a conversation with Jake Latterman from the Australian punk band Clowns, and he had a very similar kind of experience because he was the drummer, and him and the lead singer Stevie had known each other for a long time, played in a band, and basically anytime they wanted to get better at something, they would just say, Stevie would turn to Jake and go, learn blast beats. Like, you got to fucking do this, man. Like, you need to know how to do blast beats or else we can't fucking be a band that we want to be. And he would just sit there and work for like a fucking week on blast beats. So it was like very similar. I think when you play by yourself, you have no one pushing you, right? But when you get in a room together, it's like, you got to hit this. Like, you got to do this. Like, otherwise you're letting the band down. And it sucks to say that, but like you really are like, this is how we want it to sound. Can you get there or not? And I think, obviously, you guys have all the talent in the world. You guys are young enough. You can learn goddamn anything. And if you put your mind to it, you can obviously physically do this stuff. So I think that's probably, without being in the room with you guys, I can kind of hear some of those conversations creeping in with each other, right?
I was just going to say,
Sorry, go
Run for
ahead.
Cover was Matthew's first ever punk beat on a song. That's kind of
Oh,
where
yeah.
he learned how to punk beat, which was really cool.
Yeah, Gabe used to shit on me all the time. He'd be like, dude, Matt, you need to learn how to punk beat, bro. Like, you can't be playing in this band and not know how. I was like, I need to learn.
Not
So then I
that.
sat down in my
I've got prog
basement every
metal in my
day.
bones, baby.
Yeah, and then I just grind out the entire No Pressure discography like every day after school. I'd sit there and I'd do it over and over and over until my forearms would just cramp up and I couldn't play. So I got big thanks to Gabe for teaching me how to do that because now it's working out pretty well for me. But yeah, even like in practice, I noticed Dylan and Gabe always pushing each other, like especially when we were writing new songs, pushing each other to sing higher melodies or like sing it harder or just do it better in any way. And it's never out of a place of like you suck.
Yeah.
It's always super constructive and it's a really, I don't know, it feels like mistakes are easy to make, or maybe not easy to make, but like everyone's comfortable making mistakes, which is a really cool feeling. Like we can fuck up and just move on.
Yeah.
Which I think makes for a great environment for all of us to become better musicians together.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing about playing live, right? Like, No Effects, Mike Burkett, Fat Mike, famously says all the time, he's like, if you come to a No Effects concert and expect it to sound exactly like in the record, you're fucking crazy because we will mess up every song in the entire set, right? Like, and now they're doing like 40 song sets, 40 days,
Oh, yeah.
like there's no way that they can learn all those songs perfectly every time and not forget a line or, miss a beat or whatever, right? So I think that's very important for a lot of people to understand is like, obviously practice, do your best to try to get it right. But if one of your band members misses something or is off a beat, like don't just freak out. Like I used to do that all the time. Like my drummer would get off a beat and I'd be like, dude, you're a beat off. And he's like, no, you're a beat off. And then we realized we were calling each other beat offs. So we named our first album and our album, I'm a beat off, you're a beat off. So yeah.
Man, that's sick.
Awesome.
That's a good story. That's a cool story. It's really cool when we kind of like, it's constructive criticism, I'd say. Especially also when we're writing songs, especially I'd say lyrics are a big part. Like we'll come up with a line and somebody will be like, no.
That sounds stupid.
Right? It's not because it's like we hate it. It's just kind of it's more of like it can be better. And that's what's awesome about this band is that we take each other's ideas and we build it for a better end product.
You're not stopping anytime soon. So let's talk about what you guys have that's going to take you to the next level, right? So I obviously mentioned a couple of these shows coming up, but let us know what you guys for sure have coming up in the near future. So that way anybody who's just listened to this part of the episode can say, oh, I'm going to go to that or go to this or whatever. So let everyone know what you guys got coming up.
In August, we've got the Shed Show up in LA in the Arts District. That's going to be super cool with our good friends. The day after that, the 31st, we're playing California is for Lovers. That will also be really awesome. And then we've got a show on Halloween that we just announced today. We're playing a Blink-182 cover set at the Shea Cafe.
Nice.
We'll be playing deep cuts. I'm going to be doing the punk beat the entire set. So thank you, Gabe, or whoever makes the set list in our band, for demolishing my forearms for that set. We're playing the When We Were Young pre-show. I feel like I'm forgetting stuff. Gabe, do you know of anything else?
I think that's it. There's talks
As of now, but
there's talks of more stuff in the fall or definitely the near future, but set in stone, that's the 4 that we have right now. New single and a new music video coming within the next month or two.
Nice.
Other than that, we're going to be getting back into the studio to write more singles, and I think for now, the plan is going to be to release singles to get us to next year, and then whether that's release singles next year and then the album, or if it's just to release the album, we'll see what the future holds and what the plan is.
Nice. We'll put all the links to your guys' stuff in the show notes below this episode. So anybody who's listening, go check those out. Make sure you're following New Aesthetic, obviously, all their social media. I don't do TikTok, but I know you guys do, and you guys do fucking great. I've watched some of your videos. I'm like, God, I wish I had time to do TikTok, but there's no way. No one's going to believe me as a TikToker anyway, so it doesn't matter. You guys have any shout outs or anything else that you want to talk about, say, before we go today?
Let's say
shout out Inbalance. Shout out Josh Henderson. Shout out Stateside, Hereditary, all the local bands in the San Diego scene.
Nice.
Shout out Riff and Nick. That's the big one.
Riff and Nick. Shout out our parents. Shout out your dog.
Oh yeah,
Sammy.
my dog Sammy. Shout out my sister Ella, because she got mad that she wasn't in the last podcast and she wasn't shouted out.
Be like, you have to watch
about
all the way to the end. I swear it's there, but you can't see it. You got to watch all the way to the end.
Yeah,
More?
shout out you, man. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
And a big shout out to all our fans. Thank you to everybody that supports this band and sticks with us, listens to our music, shares us, everything, buys merch. I could go on, but seriously, thank you to the fans for sure.
I'm going to shout out your Gibson SGs back there. They look fucking sick in the background.
Yo, Gabe's SG Supreme sucks, dude. I hate that guitar.
Where is
Your
it?
SGs suck compared to mine.
I see a Les
Bro,
Paul. I
that's-
see a
Wait, that's the
SGs.
OG. Is for lovers. Hawthorne Heights, Ohio is for lovers guitar.
Stop,
That was-
bro. You're
That was
wrong.
not in the music video, but that is the same model that was in the music video. I remember when I met Dylan, he's like, dude, I want to
Yeah.
play your SG. It's the same one that was played in the music video. And I was like, sure, dude.
Yeah, and then he was like, dang, your SG sucks.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Gibson is not sponsoring this show, so you can say whatever you want.
Oh, I wish they were. I love Gibson. Please
Yeah,
sponsor
Gibson,
us. At least
please.
me. I'm not even a guitarist.
I think you
I'd
do
say-
play guitar, though, a little bit, don't you?
I do.
Yeah.
I've got a bit of a gear obsession too. It's pretty bad. Gabe was playing one of my guitars all tour.
So you got all this stuff to look like a guitar player. You could play guitar, but you're like, I'm a better drummer. I can do everybody's job in this band, but I'm going to play drums instead.
If Gabe sucked a little less at drums, then I'd tell him to do that for me, and I'd play guitar for him. But
Exactly.
You guys can start a side project where you flip members and call it something like Aesthetic New or something like
It's
that.
gonna
Yeah,
be like
exactly.
International Superheroes of Hardcore, where it's just newfound glory.
Oh, yeah.
Switched around.
but Chad singing.
Yeah, Matthew's
Oh, yeah.
gonna sing and play guitar. Dylan's gonna play piano. Matt's gonna play the double neck bass and guitar, and then I'll be on drums.
And you're playing saxophone.
Oh yeah, I'm playing saxophone too.
Guys, it's been a pleasure. Loved having you guys here talking about, obviously your music and more about you, learning more about you guys. And hopefully everybody here understands why, obviously go check out the music. And when you do, you'll understand what the hell I'm talking about when I say that these guys are legit. It's not just because they're young. It's because their music is fucking great. So go check them out. Go listen to their music. And again, thank you guys so much for being on the podcast today. We'll talk soon. That's the show for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you learned anything or like what you heard on the show today, please show us some support and subscribe to this channel and like, comment, and share this video with a friend or put it up on social media. I hate to keep asking, but without those small actions, the YouTube bots pretty much ignore this channel. Putting these videos out is a lot of work, and if you want to show your appreciation, please consider purchasing some of our musical accessories or merch from our store at poweredbyrock.com. You can read our blog and follow us in the links below as well. Those are the plugs, and that's all I have. I'll see you soon for the next episode. Until then, rock on.